Welcome back to the Michael Lofton Show. Sorry, been away for a few days here. Still getting over strep throat. I think I'm pretty much almost back to normal, but not fully there yet, but enough to do a show. But I apologize for being away for a few days and thankful to everybody who has been praying for me. It's been a pretty rough ride. This was a really difficult situation with some really bad fevers. And so thank you all for your prayers. Well, I want to talk about a medieval pope and his position on Islam that I actually just came across today. And I'm not exactly sure how I overlooked this, because this pope is referenced in a footnote in Vatican II in one of its documents. And I'm actually surprised I overlooked this and didn't catch it before. So I went and looked into his perspective and thought he had some interesting comments about Islam that people might be interested in seeing. But before we dive specifically into that, I want to just briefly look at a medical update for Pope Francis, because there is an update to his health condition that just came out. Let me share my screen and show you what Vatican News is saying. So it says Pope suffers 2 episodes of acute respiratory insufficiency. Let's just briefly look at this before we dive into the topic for the show today. So it says the episodes were caused by an accumulation of mucus, which was aspirated both times. Non-invasive mechanical ventilation was then resumed. If you recall, a few days ago, he had a really critical situation, was put on a non-invasive mechanical ventilator, and then was taken off of it, I think just a day or so ago. Now he was just put back on it. The Pope remains alert at all times. So it says on Monday evening, the Holy See press office released the following update on Pope Francis's health. So this is hot off the press. Today, the Holy Father suffered 2 episodes of acute respiratory insufficiency caused by a significant accumulation of endobronchial mucus and consequent bronchospasm. 2 bronchoscopies were therefore performed with the need to remove large secretions. In the afternoon, non-invasive mechanical ventilation was resumed. The Holy Father remained alert, oriented, and cooperative at all times. The prognosis remains guarded, as they've been saying for quite some time now. So it sounds like it's just been a deal where it sounds bad, then he gets better, it gets bad, he gets better, gets bad. And so it seems like there's some kind of cycle going on here. And so all along they've just said prognosis is guarded, because they realize this is not something that is going to go away quickly, it would seem. So hey, continue to pray for the Pope's health. I wanted to bring this to your attention. I'm going to talk about this in a little bit, what this priest here is saying about the Virgin Mary and her intercession. I'm going to touch on that here in a moment, but I came across this post, and in the comment section, somebody mentioned this about the Pope and his perspective on Islam. And we're talking about a medieval Pope, Gregory VII. So I actually came across a reference in that comment section. And so I went and looked it up, and sure enough, I was able to find it. And I was, surprised I had overlooked this in the footnotes. Let's take a look at it, because this is from the Second Vatican Council on what it says concerning Muslims. And then it has a reference to a medieval pope, and we're going to take a look at him. So this is from the document Nostra Aetate, Declaration on the Relation of the Church to Non-Christian Religions. It's a pretty short document. You're welcome to go and read it at your own leisure. We're going to take a look at just one specific part here. Now, this document is to be read in the light of a greater document from Vatican II, Lumen Gentium, which itself is to be read in the greater light of the whole tradition of the Catholic Church. But okay, so this document here, Nostra Aetate, if you look at section 3, this is the part that's going to be relevant to us today. Let's see what it says. The Church regards with esteem also the Muslims. They adore the one God, living and subsisting in himself, merciful and all-powerful, the creator of heaven and earth, who has spoken to men. They take pains to submit wholeheartedly to even his inscrutable decrees, just as Abraham, with whom the faith of Islam takes pleasure in linking itself, submitted to God. Though they do not acknowledge Jesus as God, they revere him as a prophet. They also honor Mary, his virgin mother. At times they even call on her with devotion. In addition, they await the day of judgment, when God will render their deserts to all those who have been raised up from the dead. Finally, they value the moral life and worship God, especially through prayer, almsgiving, and fasting. Okay, so that's what it says. And again, it has to be read also in light of what Lumen Gentium 16 says, also from Vatican II, which reads, in the first place amongst these, that is, those who have not received the gospel but are related to the people of God, it says, in the first place amongst those, or amongst these, are the Muslims who, professing to hold the faith of Abraham, along with us, that is, along with Catholics, adore the one and merciful God who on the last day will judge mankind. So Lumen Gentium seems to indicate that Muslims worship the same God as Catholics. And we get that here from paragraph 16. And it's kind of implied there in Nostra Aetate, because this is just kind of repeating what you see there in Lumen Gentium in a less direct way. Okay, so now notice there's a footnote here when it says the Church regards with esteem the Muslims. They adore the one God, living, subsisting in himself, merciful and all-powerful, the creator of heaven and earth. Where is that coming from? Where are they getting this from? Well, they do have a footnote. So if you go to footnote number 5, it says Saint Gregory the Great. I'm sorry, not the Great. Saint Gregory the Seventh. This is a medieval pope from 1080s, right around there. Letter 21 to Anzir or Nasir, king of Mauritania. And then it has the Patrologia Latina reference as well. So you have a Latin reference. And I'm going to read to you the translation of this letter. It's pretty short. At least the relevant portion that we're going to consider here. So here is what the medieval pope says. Again, this is Pope Saint Gregory VII writing to a Muslim king. Here's his position. He says, for Almighty God, who desires that all men shall be saved and that none shall perish, approves nothing more highly in us than this, that a man love his fellow man next to his God, and do nothing to him which he would not that others should do to himself. This affection we and you owe to each other in a more peculiar way than to people of other races. Why? Well, because we worship and confess the same God. So, medieval Pope, 1080s, 1085, right around there, writes to a Muslim king and says, Catholics, Muslims, we worship the same God. And so Lumen Gentium is referencing this. Nostra Aetate is referencing this whenever it speaks of the concept of Muslims worshiping the one God, the same God as Catholics. So he says to the Muslim, we worship and confess the same God, though in diverse forms, and daily praise, and adore him as the creator and ruler of this world. Okay, so you can see now clearly that's where they're getting the language of they adore the one God living and subsisting in himself, merciful and all powerful, the creator of heaven and earth. That's coming from Pope St. Gregory VII, who is not the first Catholic to say that. St. John of Damascus, highly venerated in the Catholic Church and Eastern Orthodox churches, a church father from the 8th century, um, writes that Muslims are basically a Christian heretical sect. So he sees them as a Christian heretical group, not a separate religion for John of Damascus. Okay, now the king continues, for in the words of the apostle, he is our peace, who hath made both one. This grace granted to you by God is admired and praised by many of the Roman nobility who have learned from us of your benevolence and high qualities. For God knows our true regard for you to his glory, and how truly we desire your prosperity and honor. So the Catholic Pope is desiring prosperity for a Muslim king. It kind of reminds me of John Paul II, who has a prayer, may John the Baptist protect Islam. Kind of gives me those vibes. Both in this life and in the life to come. And how earnestly we pray both with our lips and with our heart that God himself, after the long journey of this life, may lead you into the bosom of the most holy patriarch Abraham. So he doesn't have any calls to conversion, repent of your heresies, turn away from your false religion. Rather, he seems hopeful that this Muslim king will be led into the communion of the saints, including the patriarch Abraham. Quite a controversial position amongst various Christians. There's going to be many Christians who disagree with this, many Catholics even who disagree with this. Although it does appear that this is a position that you can find very frequently in Catholic history. Like I said, from John of Damascus now to Gregory VII to Pius X, who says that Muslims worship the same God as Catholics, to Vatican II. It seems like this is pretty common in, again, Catholic history. Again, not all Christians are going to agree with this. Some are going to reject it. And again, even some Catholics will reject this. I'm just telling you, here's what the sources are saying. Now, I do want to point out to a potential solution that some Catholics have attempted to offer in order to try to make sense of this, because some people will say, but wait, how does this work? Because, Catholicism holds to the Trinity. Islam rejects it. How then can you say it's the same God? Well, there's a really interesting and helpful resource and analogy from one Dr. Taylor Marshall. Dr. Taylor Marshall, well known on YouTube for his videos. Well, Dr. Taylor Marshall has a great article on his website explaining how Muslims worship the same God as Catholics. And here is Dr. Taylor Marshall's analogy for how Catholics and Muslims can be said to worship the same God while still having some fundamental differences in who God is. So Marshall says, Muslims are also said to adore the one true God. Thomas Aquinas would agree with this by adding a clarification. One can adore in two ways. First, one can adore rightly be first, one can adore rightly, be adoring the right object trinity. I think he has a typo there. And adoring in the right manner, approved liturgy, sacraments, approved prayers and formulas. This would be the adoration that Catholics offer to the glory of God. Secondly, one can direct adoration in the right direction, but not understand the target. For example, if you shot an arrow downrange but had poor eyesight and could not see the target, then you might shoot in the right direction without seeing the destination. You shot the arrow at the proper target, but you don't see, know, perceive, or understand the target. Moreover, in this case, the bow would be too weak to get the arrow to the destination. The arrow would fall short. This blind archer with a weak bow is Islam. They shoot their arrow in the right direction toward the God of Abraham, but they don't understand the target, and their bow is too weak because their bow lacks the power of grace. So the Muslim adores the one true God just as a blind archer shoots at the one true target. Yet the Catholic adores the one true God as a well practiced archer who can see the target, has a powerful 70-pound bow stringed with grace. He says, through Christ, our adoration is carried to the heart of God. So that is Dr. Taylor Marshall's analogy for the claim that Catholics and Muslims worship the same God, yet have a fundamental and essential difference in understanding of who that God is. It's definitely the best analogy I've heard for this position that you find in the Catholic Church. So I wanted to bring that one to your attention. In a previous show, I also showed y'all where the Patriarch of Moscow, Kirill, says the same thing about Muslims and Orthodox worshiping the same God, as does Patriarch Bartholomew in an interview I showed y'all in a previous episode, a video of him in a video very emphatically saying that Muslims and Eastern Orthodox worship the same God. It's a pretty common position that you find in Eastern Orthodoxy, although there will be some other Orthodox who take a different perspective. But the more official perspective among the Eastern Orthodox and following John of Damascus, highly venerated in Eastern Orthodoxy, is that they worship the same God, hence why many of the patriarchs say these things. And so I wanted to cover that for those who may not have been aware, especially of this case of Gregory VII. I wasn't aware of that until today. So I thought I would share it with y'all for those of y'all who are interested in historical theology, the development of theology, seeing various theological positions in history, and so on. I also want to briefly address the video that precipitated all of this, because again, I found out this information in the comment section from this video right here, by a priest on TikTok making some pretty interesting claims about the Virgin Mary. And there are some Protestants here who are very concerned about what the priest says. And I want to offer some interaction with what the priest says. Let me maximize the screen there. Let me also make sure that you can hear the audio. And let's watch the video together. And I want you to tell me if you think this is a good answer and a good reason for why Catholics pray to the Virgin Mary. Tell me if this is a good reason or if it's a bad reason. If it's a good reason, tell me why. If it's a bad reason, tell me why. Okay, let's watch it together. It's only 1 minute long.
Why do Catholics pray to Mary? Look at it this way. I'm a priest, right? So people often ask me to help with lots of different things. They email, they call, they text, but sometimes I get busy and I fall behind on requests. So you know what people do? If I'm not responding, they call my mom. They call my mom, then she calls me and says, hey, so-and-so has been trying to reach out to you. Can you please get back to them? And you bet I get back to them right away. Sometimes the fastest way to the sun is through the mother. And there's something beautiful about that. God chose to become a baby. He became part of a family. He had a real mother. That's the basis of Christianity. So why would we think it would be so different for Jesus and Mary? Sometimes the fastest way to the Son is through the mother. Praying to Mary makes all the sense in the world. Hope you found that helpful. Follow for more.
Okay. So, like I said, it was a pretty short video. Now, as you can suspect, there's going to be some difficulties here with what he is saying, especially if you consider it. Um, well, let me just say this before we actually look at what the Protestants are saying in their objection. The claim essentially is this: that Catholics pray to Mary. I suppose he's saying one of the reasons why, not the only reason, Catholics pray to Mary is because it's quicker to get a hold of Jesus if you go through Mary. That's the claim. It's quicker to reach Jesus by going through Mary than directly praying to Jesus. Now, that's the premise there. That's the basis of the argument. Is there perhaps a flaw in that premise? Is there something faulty there? Is it the case that Jesus is incredibly busy and he may not get to your prayers unless you make it really urgent by going to Mary first, and then she'll bring it to his attention? Kind of like you got a situation where you're trying to get in touch with this businessman, and so the best way to do it is to like be really good friends with the secretary, because the secretary can go straight to the guy and tell him, hey, you need to answer this call back real quick. Like, that's kind of the argument here. And I don't know if this is theologically sound. I think that this is perhaps a really, really flawed analogy. And while I suspect there are some good intentions in what he's trying to say here, I think that this hinges on a really bad misconception of God, and also of the role of intercessory prayer. The role of intercessory prayer is not that, oh, this is the best way to do it because you can get to God quicker. No, it's where you have not only yourself praying, but you have others praying for you. It's not of an issue of this expedites your prayer requests more than if you didn't have it, kind of thing. So I think that this maybe rests on some faulty theology. And that is what the Protestants are picking up on here. Now, obviously, Protestants have other objections to the intercession of the saints and all of that, and the Virgin Mary. And so they have a lot of other difficulties here. But this Protestant is saying, well, this is blasphemy. Roman Catholic priests insist that occasionally Jesus is too busy to hear and answer our prayer, and this is why we should pray to Mary, saying sometimes the fastest way to the Son is through his mother. He never says explicitly Jesus is too busy to hear one's prayers, but it is implied and it is necessitated by his analogy. And so Protestants are rightly contesting this analogy here. And so I might just recommend that this one needs to be thrown into the waste bin and toss this one out, and maybe look for some other arguments for the intercession of the saints to focus on instead of this one in the future. That's me personally. Maybe y'all disagree though. Maybe y'all think that Jesus is too busy to answer people's prayers, and we'll maybe kind of get to them through an urgent request at the prompting of his mother. If that's the case, hey, let me know. I would like to know how many people actually maintain this position. I didn't know that anybody actually held to this perspective, but it actually might be something that people hold to. So I'd like to know, is this kind of a thing? Certainly put your answer there in the comment section. I would love to hear from you. Well, that's going to do it for today. I'm going to be back tomorrow, Lord willing, with some more content. So stay tuned for more. Make sure to hit that subscribe button, hit the like button. And if you want to support the channel so I can continue to offer content like this for you, please consider supporting me at patreon.com/reason and theology. Let me know what you think about this in the comment section. I'd love to hear your feedback. We'll see you later. God bless. Hey, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the content. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, the like button, and if you want to support the channel, visit patreon.com/reason and theology. Are you seeking clarity in the midst of confusion about Eastern Orthodoxy and Catholicism? In my book, Answering Orthodoxy, I offer a biblical and historical response to the most common objections that Eastern Orthodox offer against the Catholic Church. This book is for anyone searching for the truth, whether you're Catholic, Orthodox, or simply trying to make sense of the differences between Catholics and Orthodox. Order your copy today and discover the rational, biblical, and historical basis for the Catholic Church. Visit Amazon to order your copy today. Are you ready to deepen your faith and sharpen your understanding of theology? Welcome to the Center for Theological Research, your gateway to transformative learning. At CTR, you will find in-depth courses designed to equip you with the tools to grow in your understanding of the faith. Explore courses like the 7 Ecumenical Councils and uncover the foundational truths that shape Christianity. Master the ability to determine the level of a doctrine in the Theological Notes course. And in the Logical Fallacies and Apologetics course, you'll learn to spot the logical errors often encountered in non-Catholic apologetics content. Also, check out the ebooks that are available to you for free. Start your journey today. Visit ctresearch.org and take the next step in your faith formation.